What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and we got a special video for you guys today. We are going to be going over one of the best route runners in the NFL this year who is cooking every single DB that he is going up against. We're going to be breaking down his film, some of the things that you guys can take home with you, so this video will give you guys a ton of value, so I hope you enjoy. Now, before we get into this video, before I start breaking down some film, we are going to be coming out to 15 more states this offseason for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver camp. So if you guys want some more information on how you can sign up to train with us, again, check out that very first link in the description below. We'll be coming out to San Francisco, California, Miami, Florida. Then we'll be heading out to Las Vegas, Nevada, Charlotte, North Carolina, Portland, Oregon, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Chicago, Illinois, Buffalo, New York, Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, Boise, Idaho, and Los Angeles, California. So again, very first link in that description below. We'd love to have you out there, fellas. Let's get to this video. All right, guys, today we're going to be breaking down some of Stefon Diggs' best routes from the 2023 NFL season so far. So this first route is going to be a 10-yard out route that he ran versus an outside shade zone coverage DB. This is honestly, in my opinion, probably the best route of the year from any NFL wide receiver. So we're going to play this thing full speed, then we'll break it down. So he comes off the ball here, and he uses this rocker step cut at the top of the break to get this outside shade DB zone to, or DB, outside shade DB and zone coverage to break his zone coverage responsibilities and ultimately give him separation on the out route. So a lot of guys, the mistake that they would make when they have this outside shade look is they would just try to run around this guy. But anytime that you come up to the line of scrimmage as a wide receiver, and honestly, when it comes down to being a great receiver, you obviously have to have speed, you got to have quickness, you got to have explosiveness, you got to have footwork, you know, route running technique, but you also need to have a route running IQ. And that comes down to reading the DB, reading the defense, and knowing when to actually apply different moves at the top of the break. So we come up to the line of scrimmage, we see the DB's lined up outside shade. We automatically know just by his shade that he's trying to prevent the outside route. He does not want me to run the route that I've been given, which is an out route, in some cases a corner route, a fade route. He wants to force everything to the inside where he's going to have some kind of help dropping back, right? He wants us to just run a post and just go run so he could be right on my hip, and that's a tight window for the quarterback. Now, this DB is still human, though. If we give him some kind of move to the top of the break that can sell an inside route, we might be able to get him to jump, and that can give us separation to the outside. Now, the other way that you could run this route, so obviously Diggs at the top of the break uses this rocker step, right? So a rocker step is essentially like a 1-2 at the top of the break. You want to step in the direction you are going first and then fake the opposite way, right? Now, that's just one way to do it. There are multiple ways to run this 10-yard out versus this outside shade zone coverage. Look, if we just try to take off and run around him and just run to his like blind spot, DB's going to do something called keeping his leverage. If he's outside leverage, he's going to stay outside leverage. So he's going to keep it. He will keep his leverage. You might get around him, but when you break off to that out route, you're not going to have much space for the quarterback to lead us. So that's why we want to attack the inside shoulder and the inside hip. Again, it's all about giving that quarterback space to throw us open. So when Diggs attacks that inside shoulder, there's another way to do this. You could honestly just run as hard as you can, run full speed, try to get this guy to open up the gate and flip to a fade, and just run hard at his inside shoulder and inside hip. But you got to think about the situation. And again, that's where route running IQ comes into play. They're within the 15-yard line. They're in the red zone. Is this DB going to be threatened by a deep fade? Probably not, right? Because if you just run as hard as you can, he's going to think, yeah, I'm going to let you go run out of the back of the end zone. I'm going to keep my leverage. I'm going to stay disciplined. And if you run out of the back of the end zone, you're out of the play. So the deep threat of a vertical is not necessarily going to threaten him. But what we can threaten him with, especially in the red zone, what do offenses like to run a lot of? Quick inside breaking routes. We could definitely get him on something like that. So that's the reason why he uses the move. That's the reason why he attacks the inside shoulder and inside hip. Now let's talk about the technique of the move, right? So a DB in like, even if he's in zone coverage, even if he's an off man, maybe he's in press man right next to me, his eyes when he's looking at me are going to be reading my body language. So anytime that I do a move like a rocker step, which is essentially a 1-2 at the top of the break, I have to sell that move with my hips. So like, let's say you're running a rocker step and you're running an out route. You would step with your left foot first, and then you would step with your right foot. And you would want to turn your belly button completely to the inside of the step with the right cut. So if you guys can have loose hips, belly button to the side of the break that we are faking to, that's got to get that DB to commit because that is where he is watching. So that's a great example of how you guys can use a rocker step, how you guys can sell a rocker step and set yourself up with plenty of room to accelerate out of the break and for the quarterback to lead us. So this is honestly probably the best route of the year, I would say, and obviously a great rocker step move here by Stefon Diggs. That's a great job getting separation on this. All right, so now next example here is Diggs is going to be running a deep out route versus this inside shade press coverage look. So guys, remember, we have inside shade coverage. Remember, a great wide receiver not only has great route running, great skills, great technique, but he also knows when to apply it and how to read a DB. He's got to know the right situation to use certain moves. So we come up to the line. We see that the DB's lined up inside shade. What does that mean he's trying to take away? The inside. He's trying to just make us run to the outside because he has help to the outside. Now, it's not a defender. His help is going to be the sideline. So if we just run and we're hugging the sideline the entire time and I got to run an out route, the DB did his job. That is not a throw a quarterback is going to make. Because if he does make it, or if he does attempt it, it's going to get picked off and going the other way because we didn't give him room. So when he's inside shade and you have to run an outside breaking route, that's favorable because I can take an outside release, but I can't just take off and go run. I have to attack him, and then I got to press up vertical and do something called getting skinny. So let's play this full speed because that's exactly what Diggs does. So he attacks this guy to the inside, his little hezzy move, but you see how he's fighting into him. He's leaning into him. That creates more room for him to the outside. That's what we call getting skinny. And this is how wide receivers, guys, like people talk about all the time, like, oh, wide receivers need to be physical. They need to use their body. They need to use their hands. You need to hand fight throughout the stem. This is what we mean by that. So like Diggs doesn't necessarily like attack his leverage. He gives him a little like kind of hesitation hop, if you will, to try to maybe throw off this DB's timing and tempo, but it holds him to the inside. Now, Diggs could very easily just take off and run away from this DB and leave this gap of space. But if we have a gap of space, number one, this DB could easily cut us off to my break point because there's a gap. We didn't close the space with him off the line like I would recommend that you probably should. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes you have some space like this off the ball. So if you were to just take off and run away from him, one of two things could happen. He could either cut us off to the break, right? Or he's going to leave this kind of space and continually force us to that sideline. So when you break on that out route, you don't have any room. So when you guys do this release, you guys want to almost dip that inside shoulder and inside hip and get into this DB's hip. Because this is called getting skinny. Because only one of two things could happen here, right? When you're getting skinny. Number one, you could get skinny enough to where you stack him and that DB's trailing us. So when he's trailing us, you could do a move at the top of the break. You could do a little peek back move, or this DB's going to be right on our hip and we could almost lean into him with my upper body, try to get physical. And then when I break, it's almost like a way of pushing off without getting flagged for it and actually pushing off. So that's a great example of how you would run an outside breaking route versus inside shade press. We'd want to attack him, then we'd want to get skinny. You should be running hip to hip with that DB downfield on that stem of the route. Now, another thing that Diggs does here at the top, which I think is very, very high level, is that when he pushes up, you see how he's giving this glance back to the inside with his eyes. This is called a peek back move. When you guys attempt this type of move, I'm not saying to not attempt it. Just so many receivers make the mistake of when they peek back, they start to lean back, and then their stride starts to shorten. They start to slow down, and that lets that DB know a break's coming. When you shoot your eyes to the inside, we were trying to sell fade. On a 10-yard out versus inside shade press, we want to make that dude believe that we're running a fade. So shooting your eyes to the inside isn't a bad idea. We just have to make sure that I keep a good forward lean in my pad level. I'm running hard, and I'm holding my eyes there for multiple steps. If you just throw your eyes up at the last second with the cut, there's really no purpose of doing it. You got to hold your eyes, maintain good posture, maintain good speed, and make sure we are getting skinny. This is a great job here by Diggs, even attacking to the inside. And again, his alignment was favorable. He was lined up close to the hash marks, which means that he had a lot of room to the outside. Even if you have room, we can't just take off and go run. Okay, so now this next rider from Diggs, this is kind of a triple move route. This is called a squirrel route. Don't know why they call it that, but this is for a longer developing play. This is usually a play where the quarterback has like max protection. Because anytime that you post a route that takes a while like this, especially if it's in one-on-ones, different story, right? But like real game scenario, like in the NFL, like a lot of people will see this route ran. Because this route is an out, up, and then like a stop. Some people will run it like an out, up, and out. Some people will run it like an out here, up, and then a comeback. They run it just like a stop route. It's usually a max protection situation where the quarterback's going to have 5 offensive linemen, 2 tight ends maybe, a running back staying into block. So he has a lot of time back there to throw and to let this route develop. Sometimes it's off of play action, longer developing plays, right? So we're not going to focus too much on the route. I want to focus on the technique Diggs uses at the top. So he breaks to the out, breaks up, puts the brakes on, and swats him by. So I want to talk about that swat.
Because anytime that we post a clip or other people post a clip where a wide receiver does this like throw-by move, as I call it, people will say that this is a push-off. Now, this is not a push-off. This is honestly just hand fighting between a wide receiver and between a DB. So when you guys have a situation where you were taking an outside release and we have that inside shade press look, and let's keep it in basic terms. Let's say you got to run a curl route. Let's say you got to run a dig. Let's say you got to run a post, and that DB is sitting right on your hip. This throw-by move is the move to use, right? Because we talk a lot about it. Slipping underneath him, taking what he gives us. So he's inside shade, and you got to run an inside breaking route. Don't force the inside release. Take the outside release, get him to flip his hips, and we use this type of move at the top. Now, when you decide to use this move, we obviously don't want to push. We don't want to push this guy in the shoulder, push him in the back, because that's going to get a flag call, because you're literally pushing him, right? You want to keep your elbows in tight, and you want to swat him at a point of control. So what's a point of control? There are 3 points of control on a DB: elbow, shoulder, and hip. If you guys can aim for those 3 spots, you could keep your elbows in, you could stay subtle, and you will be able to get separation like this without getting a flag called. So that throw-by move is one of the best moves that you guys can use. Again, he's inside shade, and he's running this like squirrel type route. Almost think of it like a curl. Almost think of it like a dig. That inside hand has got to work if we're not able to stack the DB, right? Because best case scenario, we stack him, and we're able to just kind of put the brakes on like a dig or something like that. But if he's right on my hip, that throw-by move, 3 points of control. It's the details, fellas. All great route runners emphasize the details. All right, fellas, really want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section. We always love hearing from you guys. I appreciate all the feedback, and we'll see you guys next time.